Right guys, this is a Bushmaster video, and what I'm going to go through here is the contents of a jungle survival kit. A couple of general principles. First of all, don't put anything in a survival kit that you do not know how to use well. It is pointless relying on something in extremis if you don't know how it works. That particularly comes down to your emergency medical gear. If you've got drugs and so on in here which you don't know when to use them, for how long and so on, it can do more harm than good. So make sure you know what you're doing. Second one, which flies in the face of most things that people say about survival kits, is choose the equipment that you want to put in to your survival pouch, and then once you've got everything and you're happy, choose the thing it's going in. Then select it. Don't get a small tobacco tin and try and ram stuff into it. Best thing is get what you need, then choose the pouch that it's going into. And most of the time you'll find it's a lot bigger than you think. The old tobacco tin pouch, it's a bit of a red herring really. Okay, so I'll go through what I've got here. I've actually put all my gear together on a belt, which I wear all the time. Your first tool in a jungle is a machete. This is a 14-inch wooden handled machete I've got in Brazil. Easily your number one most important survival tool, and as you can see that is not going to fit into a tobacco tin. In a jungle environment you need a machete. It's as simple as that. A small little knife just is not going to do. So a decent machete, and again something you know how to use. And in the side pouch here I've got a thin 3-edge file which you can buy in any hardware store anywhere in the world, and that is my means of sharpening it. You do not need much gear to survive in this environment, but what you need, you really need, and you must look after, and top of the list is your machete. If you want to have another knife as a backup or for gutting fish, miscellaneous usage, what I tend to rely on is a multi-tool. This one's a Gerber. Decent brands like Gerber or Leatherman are what you want. And the reason I've got this is A, someone gave it to me for free, which is always a bargain, and B, it's got plenty of stuff on it I could use. I've got a knife for gutting fish, pliers for sorting out fishing hooks and so on, pulling them out of my body or out of the fish. Lots of little tools, much better than just one general knife. Plus, 90% of the time, I use my machete. Okay, going on to my pouch. On the side of my pouch, survival pouch, I've got a little clicker, pace counter, so I can keep track of how far I'm travelling in the forest. Then, tied on to the pouch, I've got a compass, a good brand. This one is Silver, made in Sweden. The Swedes tend to make really good outdoor stuff. And that's what goes in my pouch first. Then I've got a striker, again made in Sweden, or fire steel. It doesn't matter how wet these things get, how long you keep them, they'll always strike. Brilliant tool, and when the weather's very dry, a lot of the stuff that's lying around you can catch a spark with. Take some time, take some practice, take some effort. It doesn't happen the first time, and the first try you ever do it. You do have to practice, but it works, and it won't break like a lighter, and it won't leak fuel like a Zippo. Okay, so striker. Then I've got, in all these little pots, this one's an old peanut butter pot, a whole miscellaneous load of stuff. I've got my main fire lighting gear, simple Bic lighter and some strips of rubber from the inner tube of a bicycle. Mosquito head nets, obvious usages. That all lives in this pot, along with some high-vis tape for marking my spot, my location if I get lost, so that people can find me, or for general use. And of course, paracord. Make sure it is proper parachute cord, not the cheap artificial stuff you can find in some stores. Cord 550 cord in the US, the real stuff they use on parachutes, yeah? And that's in one little pot, an old peanut butter pot. I always carry with me a metal spoon, metal, not wood. This is just a cheap old thing I probably stole in some cafe somewhere. You don't need some fancy $25 titanium thing. And that goes in next. Then I start building up my survival gear. In here I've got my fishing pouch, fishing pot. This is an old basil seasoning pot. In there I have a whole load of hooks, from small tiny little things for catching bait fish to big hooks on paracord, which I use to set traps for at night. Fishing is your #1 way of getting food in this environment, so you've really got to make sure your fishing kit is good and you know what to do with it. Insect repellents, of course. This is 50% DEET. Also help get your fire going. Just use the DEET stuff. Don't try and bring some of the modern day fancy eco-friendly things. They don't work. And you only need 50% DEET, not 100%. Okay, 50% DEET is fine. You'll probably find it remarkably free of mozzies. I've been in the bush here now for 2 weeks and we've seen like 2 mosquitoes. In this little pot, an old aspirin pot, I've got cotton wool buds. I use this in extremis if I can't get the striker going on something natural. And there's actually a tree here called the silk cotton tree, which in June, July time in the northern tropics drops a whole load of stuff called kapok, which is basically like brown cotton wool. It burns really well, so when that comes down I collect it, put it in my pot, and then that goes in. I'm packing everything away nice and neat, even though I can't see what I'm doing at the moment. Then I've got liquid iodine. This is what I use for purifying water. It must be the liquid stuff, not the tablets form. The tablet form, when you bring it to the tropics, the humidity gets into the bottle and it turns all the tablets into gunk. Okay, this stuff is great. This is 10% iodine. 3 drops of this per litre of water. Drops, not squirts, drops per litre of water. Wait 15 minutes and it's good to go. If it's really dirty water, full of leaf litter and so on, you may need to filter out that leaf litter and then purify it, because that prevents the iodine doing its work. That's really good stuff. Kills everything in the water. Got a little bit of a taste to it, but you'll get accustomed to it, and it's certainly better than going down with D&V because you drank something bad. The great thing with iodine is it's also an antiseptic. So any cuts and scrapes which you will get, just a little drop of that, it'll prevent them getting infected. Iodine, for some reason, is difficult to get in Europe. Practically impossible, actually. Don't worry about it. When you go to the tropics, here we're in Guyana, go to any pharmacy and they've got iodine on the shelf. It's some stupid European rule about iodine, so don't worry about it. It's nothing health reasons, it's other stuff. And then I've got my fishing reel. I've got about 30 meters of fishing line on here, decent sized hook, weights, and a wooden reel to keep it stuck away. Obviously your fishing gear is really important. It's your #1 way of getting protein food. Hunting and setting traps is really difficult unless you know the forest very well. So make sure you've got a good fishing kit, and of course you know how to use it. And then my last one is my med pot. I've got a whole load of medical things in here. Basic stuff, nothing fancy. I've got hydrocortisone cream for the itches and bites. I've got Piriton, which is a tablet you take internally, and that's basically hydrocortisone, makes you feel a bit drowsy. Advil, ibuprofen, paracetamol. I've also got a full course of antibiotics in the shape of Cipro, ciprofloxacin. I've got band-aids, I've got zinc oxide tape for wounds, and of course in here I have the antiseptic. I've also got a sterile needle in there for popping any bad blisters I might get, things like that. And that lives in the top, and hopefully you can see I still got a bit of space in there, because invariably what happens is when you pack these things at home really tightly, when you come to doing it in the bush and you're in and out every day to your pouch, things seem to grow in size and you can't get the bloody thing back in again. So make sure you leave a little bit of space. It also means if you find stuff on the go, like little nuts that you can use to get grubs out of, or sap from a tree, which is a good fire starter, you can put it in your pouch. And then that's your survival kit. As you've seen, I've compartmentalised everything, rather like we do with rucksack packing, and in those little pots, any old leftover pots. And they're also pretty waterproof. They won't take us submerging in the river. It's certainly, and it's been raining and so on here, I'll just pop out that cotton wool, strike it, it's good to go. even in the rain that you get here. And that is my survival kit, ready to go. Okay.